We're delighted to have you here tonight to hear primarily from Corina Matamoros, who's a curator at the National Museum of Fine Arts in Havana, and her remarks on the upcoming Carlos Garaicoa exhibition. And contemporary Cuban art will be followed by a short presentation from Helmo Hernández, who is the director of the Ludwig Foundation in Havana. And they have been here all week, and our curator of education and curator of Latin American and Caribbean arts, Noel Smith, has organized their visits, and they have been all over campus, and Noel and Corina are working rather closely on the development of the Carlos Garaicoa exhibition for its showing in Tampa. So it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Noel Smith, who will introduce our guest this evening. Noel?
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you all for being here. I'd especially like to thank Corina Matamoros and Helmo Hernández for being here tonight. They are great friends of ours for many years now. You'll hear a little bit more about it from Helmo, I think, a little later. This exhibition, La Enmienda que hay en mí, from Carlos Garaicoa, opened at the National Museum of Fine Arts in Havana during the last Biennale in March. It will travel to the Cayo Girona in Girona, Spain in February of 2010 before coming here to USF next fall. And the exhibition will come in its form as Corina is describing tonight. As well, we are hoping to have the artist do a site-specific installation, especially for Tampa. And the artist will visit Tampa late this year to prepare the exhibition and begin a collaboration with us. Hopefully we'll start some prints or sculpture projects or whatever he might want to do. I'd also like to mention that in conjunction with this project, Garaicoa, we're evolving an innovative online program for secondary school students. So in collaboration with the USF College of Education and two Hillsborough County social studies teacher, one of who is here tonight, Joel, we are writing a one-week program of studies founded in themes present in Garaicoa's work. Both students and teachers are going to be able to access these programs online, and they'll be complemented by videos and internet and interactive features. This program focuses on the development of visual literacy, which I'm sure you will all agree is one of the primary concerns of our time, and really increases our outreach efforts to a younger audience rather than just the university and older community. Now seems a particularly propitious time to be bringing exhibition of the scope and depth of Garaicoa's work. He is highly eclectic, and he freely draws upon any medium, including but not limited to sculpture, photography, poetry, architecture, installation, and video. With the city as his laboratory, most specifically his natal city of Havana, but cities from all over the world, he explores themes such as and related to architecture, urbanism and city planning, modernism, globalization, history, authoritarianism, and its effects and the conditions of contemporary society. The expressive qualities of his work, always defined by the content of his ideas and concepts, range from the very intellectual to the very tactile and sensual. This is a restless and mutable artist who deeply connects to the world around him. Carlos Garaicoa the exhibition will be Corina Matamoros' third collaboration with the USF Contemporary Art Museum. The fourth will be an exhibition we're planning for Havana. The Works of Graphic Studio will be shown in Havana in 2011, and we're really looking forward to that project. Corina, who, as Margaret mentioned, is curator of contemporary Cuban art at the National Museum of Fine Arts in Havana, which is the Cuban equivalent of the National Gallery of Art here in this country, has collaborated with me on two exhibitions already. The 2005 exhibition, Los Carpinteros Inventing the World, which we curated here and later traveled to Chicago, Cincinnati, and London, Ontario, and another exhibition of contemporary Latin American sculpture, Caribbean sculpture called Homing Devices in 2007. Corina recently joined the Institute for Research and Art Advisory Board as an international member. She has a degree in art history from the University of Havana and a degree in museum studies from the Louvre in Paris. She has worked at the National Museum 31 years and is responsible for the development of the contemporary Cuban collection. She's published more than 50 articles on Cuban art and culture and museum studies. Tonight, she'll talk to you in depth about the work of Carlos Garaicoa, an artist whose work she has followed since the early 1990s. After this presentation, Helmo Hernández will speak, so I'll come up and introduce him. And so let's, if we can have questions come after both presentations, that would be great. Let me introduce you now. Please welcome Corina Matamoros.
I would like to thank Margaret Miller for inviting me to come here and to work with you, and Noel Smith, my friend, and co-curator with me with many exhibitions. We are here. 6 months ago, I had the opportunity to curate a personal exhibition of Carlos Garaicoa at the National Museum of Fine Art. The amendment in me was the title that I chose among all the tiny text contained in the Garaicoa artworks. Being the show notable by his remarkable pieces, I thought in how wonderful it would be to bring the show to this university and to this city, to which I have significant feelings of gratitude and friendship. I will be delighted if this lecture could be the first step of this idea. I would like to excuse me about my English. What has decided me to speak in your language was the request due to me 4 years ago by Margaret Miller, to whom I am so obliged, and I gave her at that time, unfortunately, my word. Certainly, you will not understand very well my words, but I'm sure you will enjoy with the power of the images. The architecture of amendment. Preliminary draft. Garaicoa took off with the 90s. He belongs to that generation which emerged during the special period, the harshest economic crisis of revolutionary Cuba. That was one of those moments that was ideal for not producing art, but when really good art was produced nevertheless. It was then we saw the emergence of Cacho, Los Carpinteros, Tania Bruguera, Abel Barroso, Sandra Ramos, José Toirac, and an impressive group of today's well-established names. At the beginning, Garaicoa's science, traffic science, and reconstruction possess a subtle provoking spirit. They seem to indict the laws of an aesthetic and maybe an ethic amidst the abandonment of the illustrious city of Havana. Photography became the mute evidence of a body of building, society, and individuals vividly seen among the ruinous building. From that moment on, he would structure his viewpoint through the photographic lens to focus on a city that inevitably includes us all. Later, Garaicoa went to the trouble of making replicas of details. and even architectural installation in whose absolute and amazing fidelity he could better conceal his contempt. After that, Garaicoa showed signs of discouragement, and his gaze slowly moved towards the possible. He then began doing a draftsman-like an utopian architecture that gained him a following in which he reconstructed ruined buildings with ingenious, impossible solutions. His technical study served him well for dimension and measurements, the structuring of shapes, and the perspective of objects represented on a plane. Other cities began to call him, above all, New York, Centro Havana's sister city. Others would come later. His cities began to move away from their reference and, made of paper, rise illuminated and weightless. A growing impulse leads him to make the new architectures, to draw over the photograph with thread, to discover almost with amazement the urban billboards and their influence over the city.
Can I just, is it okay?
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Urban planning. Seen from a holistic perspective, all of Carlos Garaicoa's work deals with politics. His media are so heterogeneous, so hybrid, so distant from one another at times that the whole can only be seen through a highly strategic vision. Aesthetic preference become political when the conventional limits that distinguish art from not art are crossed. And Garaicoa includes everything that serves his idea, regardless of the genealogy and tradition to which his visual, symbolic, and physical repertories belong. This relates directly to another of his peculiarity. It is difficult to deal with his work specifically piece by piece. First of all, the analysis of single works is unsatisfactory when trying to test out an elusive narrative. And second, an isolated reading is not enough to explain the true meaning of his project. Only knowing the totality of his work, or at least group of his work, explain Garaicoa's art. What allows us to better read his poetic are the linked image in a photographic series, the glimpses on the train of thought running among various installations in a given period, or even the revisits that he sometimes shows. His pieces are like words in need of the text's global syntax in order to be interpreted. His art practice is an open operating system that seems to progressively devour certain types of image, knowledge, and actual experiences, incorporated them with rapid sensibility and a great sense of timing. He has also a typical trait of those who have not been educated in art academies from a young age, a sort of wide-angle lens to look at scenes. If the heterogeneity was born from his dissatisfaction of form or from his separation from a particular medium, it can only be maintained over time by a perpetual cognitive avidity. In Garaicoa, this avidity seems to be directed towards fields that neighbor the visual arts, literatures, where he sees as a precedent to his own work, sociology, music, architecture. The city has been the great pretext of his poetics. What can be more heterogeneous than a city? What other source would provide more material? What would furnish more alternative? Amid the many ways of perceiving it, the city appeared to him first as architecture. Born and raised in the middle of a beautiful and neglected historical city, it was logical that he would value the magnificence of its building and that he would encounter many places that still preserved their vestigial inherited charm and seduction mingled with the mysterious varnish of time. But when you choose architecture, you are choosing the habitat and its circumstances, the people living their lives, the community and its symbols. You choose, if not the total human environment, at least the setting that they have built just for themselves, where everyday life takes place. The wide avenues. The city itself, distinctive to human creation, the scenes of many comforts and conflict, continuously offer the artist more and more reason for thought. Could it be a coincidence that in the midst of the current world economic crisis, Garaicoa makes a model of emblematic European building from coins, as he did in Portrait of Europe? Or can we believe that his magnificent work, The Hunter, where a man drags a hut made of mirrors around the city, is not related to the dilemma of the displaced? Or that his installation, I don't want to see my neighbors anymore, does not allude to the incompatible differences, the violences and hate of all kinds generated in our world? Or that the surprising campus does not talk about the society of violence that pursues us? Or that the analysis of a historical situation, as in the reconstruction of the Dutch city of Arnhem in Now Let's Play It a Disappearing, made with candles that continuously burn down, cannot teach us something useful about today's world? Or that the monumental letter to the censors does not insist in the right to say what we think? All of these great work are contemporary political statements. Urban furnishing. Not everything in the city is wide avenue. Garaicoa also has his dead ends and alleys, noisy center and hidden neighborhoods. His home is within the great city. That is, he lives within the object of his work. And like any good flaneur, he always finds many interesting things in the urban landscape. He wanders into literature, completing the phrase he finds on all business signs, as he were composing a street haiku. The artist can never ignore the texts. His endless search of the building's facades turns the city into a book which offers itself to pedestrians, a poem written while walking. The images of these photographs that many Havana inhabitants would easily recognize allowed a kind of transient poetry, perhaps a slight nostalgia of the scene aren't what they used to be sort. But let there be no mistake, the artist's gaze is much more active and much more about imprinting his own urban literature. Architectural project. And what if the artist's long voyage was just a road to architecture? What if his dissatisfaction with the media of expression, the unorthodox resource, utopia as preamble, and sculpture as a test, were only hiding the true goal of someone who is building a space for life itself? What if it were time to sculpt living itself? What if all those thread drawings, experimental photos, and three-dimensional work were not utopias after all? Starting with pieces like Campus, Garaicoa begins working in buildable architectures, designed and planned in collaboration with a group of architect and maquette builders. The artist's studio became a team in the style of an architect's office, and it takes a role that anticipates authentic construction. In fact, he and his team are currently working on a project for a public library in Castleford, a small English mining town. The site will host an astronomical observatory, an exhibit of Roman ruins found underground, and the library itself among its main functions. The artist's new projects may be grand architectural works, the kind created as ideas before being built. Those require, more than any other art, the convergence of all knowledge and all human creativity. The city's complexity demands all skills. Architecture will claim from the artist renewed obligation, bigger solution, and supreme inventiveness. On the table where the political world is transformed into act. The world table has become a miniature city. Scenes change their scale there, but the logic is reproduced with amazing accuracy. This is an artwork city, influenced by the billboards, building, and advertising we find everywhere. The Curator has included all kinds of materials, cutting mat, light boxes, building models. There is something liberating about a table where we can add or remove artifacts, making it flow with our thoughts. It is a table where common city objects are used in order to insert other signs, to leave new marks, or to propose personal statements. On the mats, one can read phrases like the amendment in me, negation in my blood, starry night. There are two billboards facing each other that read, I believe in everything on one side, and I believe in nothing on the others. Let us imagine that we wander in this part of a city, and those billboards suddenly confront us, obviously leaving us thinking. Let us imagine that the billboard that was always in the corner of Linea and the streets, just by the bus stop, has grown a building similar to itself, inspired by the metal structure in the same place where before there was only a sign to read. The billboards have become a substantial focus of the artist's attention, revealing to him a juicy potential political capital. These devices of publicity gather in a single physical entity the literacy of a text, the ideology of a message, and the visual presence of a symbol. Many billboards have turned mute in recent years, emptied by neglect or lack of material. Those former bearers of national political life still retain their metallic skeletons clinging from roof and roadsides. Silent and enigmatic, they scream an absence that the artist listens to attentively. It is there where he implants his new message. These can be other silent billboards designed for existing places or architectural projects associated with the specific place where they stand. Whether using thread drawings or digital modeling over photograph scenes which reproduce well-known space in Havana, Garaicoa continues an urban billboard project that is important in the language of the revolution, proposing to add a concrete building to an abandoned billboard is nothing less than passing from the political world to the action, as we can read in the titles of some of his work. Then it is not about sketches for utopias, as has been commonly noted, but about building a true wall against chimerical excess, proposing a real path for action. Architecture as symbol, the 18 Brumaire of Carlos Garaicoa. Because he has completed a long voyage that began by analyzing a city's system of symbols. Because he made drawings for constructed utopias. Because he has passed through hyperrealism and through never before seen or lived urban utopias, and because he has experienced the intense passion of designing a social space for real use, Garaicoa adheres to architecture as symbol. Everything that happens to human takes place in a specific landscape. To take that space as the metonymy of the conflict of contemporary civilization is the subject matter of his creation. He fervently applies himself to the efficacy of this powerful symbol without nostalgia of softness in order to firmly establish his opinion of the issues he cares about. For example, in Theory and Practice of the 18 Brumaire, he asks what is the destiny of certain architecture practice by revolutionary Cuba, and he does it by energetically interpreting reality, as did Karl Marx in his book The 18 Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, with his spectacular examination of the revolutions he observed in the mid of the 19th century. Using numerous volumes of his historical text, Garaicoa sacrilegiously constructs a falling down apartment building, commonly known as the 12 floors in Cuba. The act of using one of the Marx soundest essay to construct a building that in no way can equal the text, either in efficacy or in scope, but with which it should nevertheless share ideas, creates a relentless look at the unfortunate socio-constructive circumstance of the island. Here, architecture becomes a material, a brick that rises walls, and it is also a symbol, a synthesized way of expressing a conflict from its unique capacity to implicate all social and individual forces. The installation, the crown jewels, presents as if they were jewels in a glass cabinet, miniature silver model of a group of buildings that had repressive functions at some point, prisons, torture chambers, military buildings. Again, architecture serves as an allegory to strike against the society of surveillance and control that are increasingly established around the world. Garaicoa maintains a penetrating 18 Brumaire attitude about everything that happens around him, a particular sagacity towards everything that occurs in the universe of the city. After all, it was the city's supreme strategy which ignited the artist's sociological vision, what awoke him utopias and philosophical reflections, what demanded to be read as a text, what has induced him to simulate it and to amend it, what has challenged him to add new buildings, what has served him finally as the material, the methodology, and the total state of humanity. Thank you very much.
Now, I would like to introduce Helmo Hernández. Helmo is an art historian who taught for many years at the University of Havana. And he has been president of the Ludwig Foundation in Cuba since 1995. I'm going to tell you very briefly about the Ludwig Foundation. Actually, this comes from the website. The Ludwig Foundation of Cuba is an autonomous, non-governmental, and non-profit institution in Cuba. Now, I don't know how much you know about Cuba, but those words in relation to Cuba, that's a very unusual institution in Cuba. And the Ludwig Foundation was created to protect and promote contemporary Cuban artists and culture, develop research works and new technologies applied to the artistic field, and encourage dialogue with both Cuban and international cultural communities. The Ludwig Foundation of Cuba acts as a cultural center to encourage the creation of bridges of understanding in Cuba and abroad. The Ludwig Foundation of Cuba has established long-term programs with leading institutions worldwide. Programs include performances, festivals, exhibitions, exchanges, lectures, seminars, academic courses, workshops, conferences, scholarships, and grants. And the Ludwig Foundation was founded in 1995 by Peter and Irene Ludwig, world-known private European collectors, and funded yearly by the Peter and Irene Ludwig Foundation located in Aachen, Germany. And how Helmo has been such a wonderful friend to us.
Watching Corina talking about Carlos made me also almost started to sing today. Those were the days, my friend. And you know why? Well, because I knew Corina when she was a very young girl. And I met Carlos when he was studying. So those were the days. And when I saw La Casa del Brillante, the first piece that she showed, or the reconstruction of a sloppy bar, and I remember that these pieces Garaicoa showed in one of our first exhibitions, when it was very, very difficult to show Cuban contemporary art in our galleries in Havana. Well, we were starting at that point. all of me too, again, you are always studying in life, and you must preserve yourself in this disposition to start again. Tonight, here is with us, we have here with us people that have been very important to restart things in our lives. First of all, here we have Noel. And when we were already working at the foundation, trying to organize exhibitions with the young Cuban artists, etc., and trying to reestablish the links with the American culture, with other institutions all over the world, we found Noel. So, no. Let me be fair. Noel found us. The problem is this: Cuba is an island, but it's an island with ports. And in the same way that Garaicoa is showing us that Havana is already a transformed city, although it seems to be like a city stopping at times, it's already transformed. It's transforming every day for several ways. Well, the same way Cuba is an island with ports, and Cuban culture was built from dialogues. So the isolation is the worst enemy of Cuban culture, could be the worst enemy for our future. In 1958, if you ask me which was the most American country outside the United States, I'm sorry, but my personal answer would be we were. If you ask me which is the most American country outside the United States in 2009, again, my answer would be the same. We still are the most American country, culturally talking. So we need bridges, cultural bridges with the United States, yes. We always had, starting with Jose Marti, the intellectual elite that could make the difference between the good things in the American culture and the things that were not so good. And this we lost since the beginning of the revolution. I mean, this capacity of establishing differences between the good things and not good things. So one of our goals since the very beginning of the foundation was to try to reestablish our links, our bridges with the best American institutions, with the best American cultural programs, with the best of the American culture, to bring it back to Cuba, to get in contact with them again. During the Clinton administration, we could do several things and several programs. Here we have another very important person that played a main role to make this possible during that years. It's Larry Corwin, here with us, an old friend of mine. Once I was here already and I said, but you were not here. Your mother was. So I said this before here in Graphic Studio, in a previous presentation. Without Larry's collaboration, our exchange programs with the American institutions wouldn't be like they were at that time and couldn't be like they're going to be again.
And we'll explain to the audience here what his role was.
Okay, sorry. This man there is a secret agent. No. He was in charge. He was in charge of the Office of Culture, Press and Culture Office. For me, press is not so important, but culture, yes. And at the Cuban American Interest section in Cuba. Is that correct? I'm saying correctly? Okay. But we were working together. We became friends. And Larry, believed me, understood Cuban culture in a very deep way and helped a lot to make the people in Washington to understand what was the correct policy to be developed at that time. And he's still working in the same way, so that's why I'm saying this now. I'm encouraging him. But in this way, with the help of Larry, Noel met us. And suddenly Tampa reappeared in my life because I was conceived in Tampa. I must say that. So Tampa reappeared in my life through Noel, and Noel came with the graphic studio and the University of South Florida with her down there. This was in 1999. And we supposed to have a meeting with Noel at that moment, but she didn't come. She fixes everything, and Hank Hein came. That at that time was the director of the graphic studio, actually. This made possible that in the year 2000, during the biennial, we could host for the first time an event with a group from graphic studio that came to the Havana Biennial, and we host a round table. I don't like the word, but it was around like a panel or something. It's a Cuban joke, sorry. Okay. We host this panel about the contact points, the points of contact between Tampa and Havana, historical points of contacts. There we had William Jeffett, Noel Smith, Deli Sachilotto, Hank Hein, Eric Von Tilius, Elena Zeppe, Amanda Carlson. This was November 2000. The same time, we host a special exhibition of Lisette Castillo. Lisette Castillo has been here and created a group of works that were exhibited in Havana at that time. With Lisette, also Ibrahim Miranda was here before. And after them came Abel Barroso, another Cuban artist, Esterio Segura, and the Carpinteros, those Carpinteros. Corina, Amends. It seems to me that this exchange program started by Noel and created with Graphic Studio and with the South Florida University of South Florida, is a perfect example of what an exchange program between an American institution and Cuban artists have to be and must be. And that's why I wanted to talk today, to say that. It seems to be impossible at the very beginning, but it was possible. And people like the Carpinteros grew up a lot being here and making for them possible to produce big works and new works, etc. Corina came when the policy was already changing and the Carpinteros didn't get the visa to come. But she came. We always find a way to do it. And then Corina came, and with the help of, she has explained that to me. A lot of people here, he's put together the very complicated exhibition of the Carpenters that now I learned that belong to the graphic studio collection. Okay. And also with those artists, also came, we invited but the university too, Miguel Barnett, a very important Cuban writer, and Leonardo Padura, among other people. I know that Gloria Rolando, a movie maker, an Afro-Cuban movie maker, filmmaker, came invited by ISLAC at that time, and perhaps I forget other people. Somebody else I want to mention tonight here in Tampa. It's Michael, right there behind. Michael has been, we in Cuba dance all the time. Not me, but the other Cubans always dance and dance very well. And we need choreographers, because choreographers make the dance a way of thinking and a way to understand reality. So Michael came to play that role in Cuba because he wanted. He found friends in Cuba and he did it with Danza Abierta. This allows me to say that he will come back very soon. And we need him down there, and he will come back soon. So I just wanted to say that the cultural relations, or to reestablish the cultural relations between Tampa and Cuba, is not only important because Tampa is an American city. No. Tampa is a very important part of the Cuban history. It's a very important part of the Cuban soul. Our homeland was born in Ybor City. There, Martí invented Cuba, created the homeland we are still dreaming about, the homeland that we never had yet. So we are dreaming about this homeland that was born here. At the same time, Teddy Roosevelt departed with his Marines from this same city for this so-called Spanish-American War that ended with what we call the Cuban Republic, with the Platt Amendment and everything. I mean, I like to say that this was the very beginning of globalization in the world. We were the first globalized country in the world. And so that's why I think that Tampa is a little bit like Jerusalem for us, for the Cubans. Everything, all the contradictions are here. We cannot understand ourselves, our future, without understanding our connection with Tampa. 2 days ago, I was saying here that truth is always very complex, very complicated. So we need to go deeper to understand what is going on. I don't want to finish without mentioning you, Linda, here, that has been working very hard in the healthcare field, trying to make these relations concrete and possible, these programs. And finally, I want to tell you that among all the programs that we are trying to restart and develop with different American institutions in different cities, is my personal opinion that the most important ones are those that we are going to develop with you, with Tampa. And this exhibition of Carlos Garaicoa coming to Tampa this coming fall is going to be a very important step. When you bring your exhibition to Cuba 2 years from now, it's going to be another very important step. The participation that you have already in the organization of the Juanes concert in Havana was a very important step. I mean, what Michael has done in Havana was a very important step. I mean, we are already doing. We are not dreaming about something impossible. It is very difficult still now, but we are already doing things, very important things. So this was what I wanted to say to you today. Thank you very much for being here at the right time and for trying to do very difficult things in very difficult circumstances, but let things happen. That's the point. And thank you. I can only talk in my name. For me, thank you. You are doing something really very important. Thank you to Corina, because she has organized beautiful exhibitions, and she has contributed a lot to these connections between Tampa and Cuba. And thank you, Noel, of course. Thank you, Margaret. And Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Linda. And thank you, Larry. Once again, I'm very pleased to say this in public, openly. And you have been embarrassed me a lot of times in my life. You know that? Okay, but not today. Thank you.